Now, the FA has this morning published the findings from the Football Leadership Diversity Code report for last season. Here are the key points from the report. Progress has been made towards the Football Leadership Diversity Code targets during the 2021-22 season, but there is more work to be done across the game. Clubs collectively exceed targets of hiring Black, Asian and mixed heritage candidates in senior coaching roles across the men's game and in coaching roles in women's football. However, clubs see a decrease in the number of diverse candidates hired into senior management and coaching roles in the men's game, as well as a decrease in female coaches hired in women's football. Well, we have Kick It Out Chair Sanjay Bandari joining us now. Really good to see you. So we'll get stuck into that in a moment. Let's just remind our viewers why this code was set up.
Well, it was set up 2 years ago, like many things, prompted by the killing of George Floyd, and that prompted many industries and organisations to pledge and commit to greater racial and broader equity. And so this was football's attempt. The FA corralled the football authorities and the clubs and came up with this Football Leadership Diversity Code to set targets around gender and race in senior leadership and coaching.
So what are the key findings from this report? What stood out for you?
Well, I suppose there's good news and bad news, so I'm generally a positive person. Let me start with the good news, right? The good news is that the football authorities, so the FA, the Premier League, the EFL, hit 7 out of their 8 targets. That's positive, and they should be commended for that. The clubs hit 2 out of 8, which was around the hiring of Black, Asian and mixed heritage senior coaches and women coaches. The bad news is they only hit 2 out of 8, which means that 3/4 of the targets were not met. And I think that's really the question here. The big question is, what does this mean for football's broader journey on equality? And I would say that what this report says in that broader context is we're at a crossroads. Football is at a crossroads. Why is football at a crossroads? Because this report only refers to new recruits. It doesn't look at the entire makeup of workforces, it's just the new recruits. When you look back at the big systemic problems in football, they've been there for 50 years. The Black Footballers Partnership put their report out last week. 43% of players in the Premier League are black, 34% in the EFL are black, 4.4% of the overall coaching makeup. The PFA recently, 0.45% of players of South Asian origin, 0.9% in the academy. That's 7 to 10% of the population. And if you're in the boardroom and you're not white and male, almost forget it. So these are the really big anomalies. And over 50 years, what those of us in underrepresented communities have experienced is a cycle of promises, hope, disappointment. So the challenge now is to make sure that the positive intent behind this does not become another in the 50-year catalogue of disappointments. And so they need, the clubs in particular, need to really focus their efforts on making this a reality. Otherwise, that hope from 2 years ago is going to very, very swiftly turn into resentment and distrust.
How important do you think it is to make sure that we are more diverse within these senior roles? Because that then feeds down, doesn't it?
They're the people making the decisions. They're the people making the decisions about which coaches to hire, the senior coaches, and that filters down. It's the old adage, if you can't see it, you can't be it. So, these are problems that have been around for many years. It's really important we have those icons in the boardroom as well as on the pitch.
You sort of hinted about it. The targets in this code were obviously put together, 2 years ago. We're due to get the most recent 2021 census data from the Office of National Statistics. That will come out very soon, and believed to show the UK is getting more ethnically diverse. Do these targets need to match that? Do they need to start to change as well?
I think what we need to do is football needs to think about how we're going to create that change. And I would say we need to go further and we need to go faster. And there are really 3 dimensions. There's what can the authorities do, what can the clubs do, and actually what can you do as the media. The authorities, look, the reality is the reason why the clubs only agreed to report on new recruits is because there's no ability for anyone to force them to do anything more. There's no regulator. No one can say you have to have better transparency reporting or set targets, as Les Ferdinand was talking about last week. There's a reason the code's voluntary. There's no legal power to make it mandatory.
Should there be then?
Absolutely. So we made submissions to the government's fan-led review and said that what they need to do, whoever the regulator is, I don't really care who the regulator is, they need to be given the right powers to enable them, like other regulators in other industries, to make mandatory requirements around equality and inclusion, which would include much better transparency reporting, because transparency is disinfectant. If you have to report it, you'll make sure that you do something to avoid having bad reports. And they can also, if they want, then set target requirements, certain representation requirements. I think then it's, what do the clubs need to do? They need to learn from each other. There are some good pockets of work, and when you look into the detail of the report, there are clubs that are doing a good job. And I think then that comes to the media. What's your job? Your job is, like us, to hold them to account. Go through that report. Look at the clubs that are doing well. Look at the clubs that are doing badly. Why are clubs like Coventry, a slightly smaller, poorer club, doing well? Why are some of the clubs in the Premier League not doing well? You should be asking those difficult questions. Do
you think that's, again, down to sort of location and being in more diverse towns and cities, though?
Let's ask them. Look, I mean, I'm not going to make excuses for them. It's up to them. Look, I know that this takes courage for them to do this, and the reflex of football will be, this is uncomfortable, so I'll close ranks. Actually, the courageous thing to do is to say, I'm going to open my books up even more. I'm going to be even more transparent. I'm going to say, I know I've got a problem and I haven't got all the answers. I need more help. That's the courage we need from our club leaders.
I mean, they're not compulsory, are they, these changes? Do they need to be then?
And the only way we're going to get that is if we have a regulator that has powers to make them mandatory. That's what we have in other industries. We had transparency reporting for gender diversity on boards, for ethnic diversity on boards, and guess what? That changed. I was involved in one of those for the government on ethnic diversity on UK boards. We said at least one director of colour by 2021. Over 90% of the FTSE 100 met that target. We set that target 5 years before. That's the kind of thing that we need, is some kind of mandatory requirements. But we're only going to get that if it's coming from a regulator, because nobody in the game has the legal power to do that. The Premier League, the EFL, they're membership organisations. They require the consent of their clubs. So are they going to vote for it? Well, they're not voting for anything around the financial sustainability and passing money down the league. So why would they vote for this?
What would you like to see happen in another 2 years? Where should we be?
I would like to see a regulator that's got the power to mandate some of these reporting requirements, and in the meantime, I'd like the clubs not to wait for it and to be more radically transparent, be more open, be more honest about the entire workforce, where they are. Look, these football clubs will tell you that they represent their communities. Well, do they? Do they look like them? Show us your books. Don't tell us that you represent the communities. Show us.
It's been really interesting. Thank you very much indeed for coming in. Thank you.
Thank you.